What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to Just a Guy on my lunch break. It is Monday, trying to get back into the groove of things. It was a challenging weekend. I appreciate everyone who reached out, and sent up prayers and positive vibes and stuff like that about, I guess, a close friend of my family. And I talked about that one of my son's good friends passed away this past weekend. This kid was 17 years old, heading into his senior year of high school. My eldest son, he's only 18, barely 18. So, you can imagine what a shock that was to my son and myself, my wife. This young man has spent time over at our home, eating dinner over at our home. He's been over there, practicing kickboxing and sparring and stuff like that with my son. It felt like I was carrying around 1,000-pound weight this weekend, the whole weekend, because of this news that we received. But anyway, the prayers are very much appreciated, and I won't stay on this subject too long because I'm also going to talk about, triggers, this news being one. For me, I was able to make it through it. I did not use any Kratom this past weekend, but I was hella tempted, and I'm going to talk about that. So I'm on day 10, by the way. This makes day 10 for me, no Kratom. But there was some talk in the comments about, what happened. We don't actually know yet what the cause of death is for this young man. And I've already said his name on the channel, but I'm just, my channel, I talk about Kratom. It's not that anyone's ever from his set is likely ever going to see me on here talking about him and make the connection and stuff like that. So I'm sure it's completely fine, but I just don't feel right about talking about too much detail about it. I definitely don't want to give his last name. His name was Ben. I don't want to give his last name because even though nobody would probably ever see it and nobody probably ever will, I want to respect his family and what they must be going through with losing their 17-year-old son right now. And part of that is just me not going too deeply into it when I talk about it. But I just wanted to dispel a couple of things that, I know I'm all over the place, guys. I'm dancing around it. My apologies. We don't know what happened yet, and the message came out through the school. My son just graduated this past year, so we still are getting calls. We're still on the call list. And they sent out a message to all the students and staff and teacher, parents of, children and students about his death. But of course they didn't give any details. Those details are to come. But, as rumors start to run rampant, my son had heard, and there was some talk about this being and I hate to even say the word, starts with an S, someone ending their own, L-I-F-E, okay? And that, hearing that, even not knowing if it was true or not, but just imagining that was even a possibility with this young man, made it infinitely worse and infinitely harder. And again, this is not about me. This is so not about me. I'm not trying to make this about me. my heart is broken for the family, and it saddens me for the family, for my son, just the simple fact that life is so unfair, that this young 17-year-old man with his whole life ahead of him, that his life will be cut short in this way. It's just that fact alone, even if I didn't know him that well, and even if it didn't really hit that close to home as far as me knowing who the person is, just hearing the news of a 17-year-old, passing, it's just, it's hard. It's hard to even hear that. And, of course, the fact that I was really fond of this young man. He's a really sweet-hearted, polite, very respectful, hardworking young man. The type of young man that absolutely 1,000,000% would have been a successful adult. I would have been willing to bet anything on that he would have been a successful adult. So it's just sad, but hearing that it could have been the cause of his death just made it even infinitely harder to accept, because you just didn't get that vibe from him at all. But that's one of the problems, with when people end up doing something like that, taking their own existence. I don't know if YouTube is going to get mad at me for saying the word suicide. That's why I keep trying to dance around it, I guess. But it's one of those things where no one ever really shows a lot of the signs, and a lot of times it is one of those things where they just keep it to themselves. They don't talk about how they feel. They don't talk about how depressed they may be, how tough life has become for them. They just don't talk about it. And then the next thing you know, they make the decision and they do it, and it's too late. And if they really want to do it and they really want to end things, oftentimes they won't tell anyone, because they know what they plan on doing, and they know that people would absolutely try to talk them out of it, right? And they just don't see any other way out. And I think that's the hardest thing about someone losing their life in that way. But it was talked about a little bit in the comments, and I alluded to that we didn't know that was the case, and it was not confirmed, but that we had heard it, that it was suspected that might have been the case. It is not. And I'm happy to report that, as horrible as this situation is, and as saddened as it is either way, and as saddened as I am still by the whole thing, and as much as I'm still torn and broken for his parents and his siblings. He had a younger sibling, and it's just absolutely heartbreaking. It was not a suicide, and my wife reached out to the school this morning, spoke with the principal of the school directly, and he dispelled any rumors that might be going around that it was a suicide, and he also dispelled that it was not a car accident as well, because my wife had also, my mother-in-law, goes to a church kind of in the area, and she mentioned it, at church this past Sunday to get Ben's family on a prayer chain and stuff like that, which I appreciated her doing that. And there were several kids there that actually were in Ben's grade that went to the same school as him, and they had heard that it was a car accident. So it just goes to show you the kind of rumors that you hear, and the way these rumors run rampant at workplaces and high schools and stuff like that. I mean, they were saying they committed suicide, and then they were saying it was in a car accident, and it's actually neither one of those, because my wife talked to the principal directly, and he confirmed that it was neither one of those scenarios. And as sad as it is, there's just something more upsetting about thinking about a person ending their own life, you know, and especially at a young, tender age like that. And so at least if there's any little comfort that the family, or that, you know, my son or any of his other friends or myself can cling to in this moment, it's that, you know, it's that at least it wasn't that, you know. Wish he was still here. I wish he was still here, and we weren't even having this conversation. But you know, if there's a bad, and then, or if there's a worse, and then the absolute worst in a scenario like this, you know, him committing suicide would have been the absolute worst. Let's just put it that way. The way it is now, it's just worse. You know, it's just bad. But anyway, enough about that. I'm 10 days off, and I'm sure you guys can tell that my countenance is a little low, a little off. I've spent the first 11 minutes of this video talking about it, so I'm not going to keep going into it. Yesterday was a real struggle for me while I was at home. You know, I know it was probably a combination of a few different things, and I'm sure Ben's passing certainly did not help. It certainly did not help my mood and the way I felt this weekend. Saturday, you know, we had some adult friends of ours that had a birthday party, so I went to that on Saturday. We were there hanging out, you know. So that was kind of a good diversion to keep me, you know, focused on other stuff and not necessarily focusing on the bad news that we got. But then Sunday rolled around, and Sunday is our day at home. Sunday is kind of our day of rest, that we're just hanging out around the house, you know, hanging out with the baby. And I really started to struggle yesterday with cravings, that is. Prior to now, haven't really had a lot of cravings. You know, I think some of it, I don't know if you call it the pink cloud phase. You know, someone mentioned the pink cloud phase on here. I don't know if it's the pink cloud phase as much as these first 7 to 10 days, I kind of felt like I was still running this race to make sure that I'm completely out of the acutes, you know, and I'm thinking acutes this whole time. And really, in all reality, I think that I never did have a lot of acutes, you know, because I tapered pretty slowly. So in all seriousness, by the time I completely came off of the Kratom, I pretty much, you know, wasn't having any more in the way of kind of like physical withdrawals, you know. So I don't know, you know, maybe I'm a little earlier entering into kind of the pause sort of phase of this whole thing. I don't know. I think could be a little bit of that. Could be a little bit of just the combination of the damper that was put on myself and my family this weekend of hearing about the news that we heard about. Could have been a little bit of that. Could have been a little bit of boredom, just that I didn't have a lot going on yesterday and I was hanging out around the house. And for me, that always tends to be just a trigger. You know, when I'm up moving around, doing stuff, being engaged in things, I don't tend to, you know, get as many of like the cravings and, you know, just really feeling like I want to take some Kratom, you know. And yesterday I had a battle for several hours where it was just looming over me, man, and I just couldn't stop thinking about it. And I think it's just, as addicts, you know, we get accustomed to using it for any reason, just to feel good, but we also tend to use it and cling to using it when anything starts to go wrong in life. You know, the first sign of trouble, oh, give me something, you know, give me something to take me out of this, you know, out of this right here. And I think that's what it was. It's the first real instance or sign of trials, tribulations, struggle, sadness, tragedy, however you want to look at it. It's the first time I've experienced anything like that since having been off of Kratom, and it definitely triggered me in a big way. Not so much Saturday. That original video that I recorded, that was done on a Saturday, and I heard about it on Friday night, but I didn't want to drop the video until we knew for sure that this young man did pass, because we were hearing through like second party, and my son had heard it from some of his other friends that they got a call through the school, and we heard the call from the school, but we didn't know any details. We didn't know if there was another kid with the same name as his. You know, we just wanted to make sure that it was the person that we were thinking about. And so I waited to post the video. I didn't post that video, even though I recorded it on Saturday. I didn't post it until Sunday, when we had confirmed that it was him. He has passed, blah, 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 blah. But then Saturday, after recording that, you know, shortly after that, I was grocery shopping, and we went to a birthday party that we stayed at for most of the evening. I was babysitting kids. There's a bunch of kids there, babysitting my own kid, you know. And I just didn't have a lot of time to think about it. And then Sunday rolled around, and I guess because I didn't have the extracurricular activities going on, or the diversions or whatever, had time to sit around and kind of think about it, and it just it loomed over the top of me for a several hour period over the afternoon and evening. And I think the only thing that really saved me, to be honest, is the fact that I don't have any in my house. I made sure that when I came completely off, that I am in a situation, that I was in a situation where I didn't have access to it, because I knew if I had access to it, that was just gonna be that much harder for me to, you know, resist having it. And so I made sure of that, and I don't have any in the house, and that's probably one of the reasons I was able to be successful, because I wasn't gonna get out and purposely drive somewhere and get it. But if I would have just had to just walk in the other room and get it, I probably would have yesterday. I can't say that for sure, but I probably would have yesterday. So that, let this be a testimony to how important it is when you're coming off. And if you are completely off, if you're tapering, that's one thing. Obviously, you need to have some on hand. But if you've done a cold turkey, or if you've tapered off and you're completely off and you're done, don't have any around you. Don't have it in the house. Don't have this little extra for the rainy day, you know, stash sitting around. Just don't do that, because I think I absolutely would have relapsed yesterday if I would have had some close by, within an arm's length, you know. Anyway, that's about it. I don't feel the greatest, for obvious reasons. You guys know, I've talked about it. But, you know, I'm praying for everyone involved in this situation, and I appreciate you guys all praying for me and my family, and for his family as well. I had a lot of people say they were praying for Ben's family. I really appreciate that for them, because I know they need it. The prayers and comfort. And you had a little brother that probably couldn't have been older than 14, 15 years old. It just breaks my heart, man. Yeah, I'm 10 days, guys. I'm not, not winning any contest with just feeling great here. I'm not winning any feel-good contest today on a Monday. But and after the kind of weekend I've had, but still holding strong. And I'll stay here. I don't plan on relapsing. I don't plan on I know that this is life's little opportunity to try to get me back in that niche, and I know that that's the very thing I need to fight against. to stay off of it. So far so good. But I gotta go. If you like this sort of content, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, also comment down below, let us know what your story is. We have so many people with different backstories and experiences here, and I think that's why it's good. You know, we feed off of each other, we draw information and knowledge and encouragement off of each other, and that's what the channel's all about. So if you're down for a non-judgmental community, we got users, current users, we got former users, we got people that are just kind of dabbling in it. You know, we got a little bit of all that on here. Former opiate use, you know, unrelated to Kratom. I mean, I'm one of those guys, you know. We got some of that on here. We got everything on here. So if you enjoy the sort of positive community and the talk where you can get some knowledge about this stuff too at the same time, hit the subscribe button, join the community. All right, I love you guys. I got to go. Hope you have a good Monday. We'll see you later.